Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's doing good. Um, Another video. I know it's been a while. Watercolor, and I know I figured let's do something outside. And in the past videos we've done a few weeks ago, a few figures outside. So we're gonna put them together and do a lot of vegetation. Um, so we're gonna play around with again values of the same color, different amounts of waters to create different tonalities and values, and also adding other colors, um, especially with the vegetation. Okay, so with the green, some are yellow, some are more blue, darker, to create volume. I have said that before, but we'll see how this goes. Okay, so I have my paper, my watercolor paper. I got my water. I got my paints, and I'll use this side as a little palette. That's why I'm cleaning the color right now. Um, and my brush. Got my brush. That's all we need. We're not gonna use pencil per se. So let's get started. The sky will be seen a little bit. Okay, so that's where I only will do a little bit of wetting of the paper in this case. You don't always have to do that, but um, we'll see how this goes. Okay, so I'm wetting the paper in this area here. The sky will be seen. So let me point out the sky will be seen here. This is vegetation, the ground, and some figures. So what I'm doing right now is just wetting the paper. And for this, is very important your brush is clean because you're just wetting the paper. You should not see any color. Okay, let's see. Get my blue for the sky. And we want to emphasize that some areas are more darker blue than others. Okay. Here at the edge, I'm trying to put more water as I go because this is where we stop putting water. So I have an idea that is around this area. And I could actually, if I want to, pick up some of the blue with a tissue. It's up to me while it's wet. But that's it. It's just simple light blue. All right. So we're gonna do the vegetation that is like back here, and those are very light greens. So I could still keep my blue. Um, Remember, green is made by yellow and blue. So This needs to be very light. So whenever you see an excess of color, um, bring more water. If you see, I'm leaving spaces in between to put other different greens. I know you could barely see that, but it's there. Um, see? And then at the bottom here, you'll see in a moment with just green. So now I'm gonna add maybe a more yellowish um, green. I don't know, but same tonality in the sense of keeping it light. Okay, so I did. Um, I'm keeping it very light, as you can see. I'm gonna bring some other green tones soon, but just at the edge where the ground is gonna hit this part here, basically the because this is foliage in the background. The part where this foliage hits the ground, I'm gonna create some bushes in some areas. But you see how the space we left blank in between now is filled with this green. So the bush will be about here. And it's more flat at the bottom and more rigid on the top. There's a gap here, and another bush comes here. So the bottom of it, if you notice, is straight, and that grounds this area. I have to clean my brush and create more of what's back here in here. And the reason why there's a gap in between both bushes is because that's the path. That's where people are going to be walking and doing things. So just like we did up here, I'm leaving some gaps. And then I bring the yellow, remember. You get the idea. Anyway, I may bring more green in this bush just for the sake. I'm bringing more green into the bush just for the sake of really emphasizing the difference between this and the rest. See, it's kind of darker than the rest, but okay. So now we're gonna build, you see, There's a gap here because, let me show you. There's a row. There's a row that goes here. Okay. So let's start by doing the trunk of some of these trees. So the trunks, I'm doing them in a light green for now too. Okay, everything is going to be very greenish. But if it's there's a tree here, it goes up. We do the trunk thicker, the bottom, and then it opens up like this. That's one. You see that tree right there? I'm going to just now try to get a different type of green or tone. I'm going to do one here, a little more straight. Always thick at the bottom. If you notice, it's almost the same tone of the green, so it's distinguished, but we'll add some brown in a moment. Okay, and I stop here, but we'll have some branches once we have the foliage. And one over here. Um, and then we'll build more branches as the foliage is created. This is white and this is white because it's going to be filled with foliage in a moment. Let me with yellow, like a very yellow greenish, but more yellow. Do this, not the row, but this. You see this right here, these two paths. Kind of very yellowish. And in this case, I didn't do it before I did the branches, so I'm going around them. Okay, let me do this in the middle a little more bluish. See, now we can see the road in the ground with the yellowish. See, you'll see what we'll do at the end. Okay, so the foliage. We're gonna have a ton of different greens. Let's start with a kind of regular green. Up here. Here's where we start to decide what how the tone of the color we're putting in will be, meaning how dark. It is a color, but how opaque is the color? So let's bring something here, like, and that opaqueness um, will come out into the painting, will stick out. So it will have to go over everything else, if you notice. So it will impose itself over the other colors. So try to always keep gaps because we're going to have different tones of greens. So this is pretty opaque, you see, and dark. That's okay. And any color that is opaque, water will tone that down. It's just a rule. So if you see a color that is too strong, too dark for this level now, you could tone it down with a little bit of water. Okay, let's bring a different green, and then if we need to come back to this, because that's the other thing, we're gonna come back to some colors. We're gonna keep bringing them back because we need to. Okay. For that, I'm gonna try to make my own green. It's different from the one that comes in the kit. Okay. Let's see here. And when you do these masses, some of them are big masses, some of them are smaller. You know, like here could be a big one. Okay, the other side. See, I'm doing patches and leaving some gaps in between. Let's bring more darker green. So this right here creates volume. You see how dark that is? Sometimes I put that color and then I make sure that I also, the same color, kind of give it a little bit of watered down tone, and then I create a new color just because my brush is running out of that color, and I let it just sit there. And as you can see, my palette, the color is becoming a little more bluish because I left blue here. So that makes it even darker. So we're gonna have some patches here that if they are really wet, we will have to spread them, because we don't want to leave that water um, sitting there. If it's too much water collected or something in the paper, because it will be too much for the paper to suck in. Okay, so soon we'll put some darker tones on the branches. Sorry, on the trunks and branches of the trees, and do some branches up here. But for that, we'll make them brown. So here I'm making a darker tone of part of the tree that's like coming out. Um, See, this is very important because it's gonna create more of sense of foliage coming down. Okay, I could even bring pure blue, and once it's mixed with the green, it just becomes darker green. But okay, so let's put some on the other side. See, and create even bigger masses of patches. Let's see if it works. maybe some yellow. Okay, so now a little more green or bluish into the trunks. Sorry, into the yeah, trunks and branches, and that's too dark. And then I'll add some brown because that's the brown that's gonna make a distinction um, when we put it in the coming out of the um, of the foliage. So I'm going over what we already done, and this gives it a little more volume because now there's darker areas over lighter ones. Okay, so now the brownish, very light. Remember, maybe up here not light in the foliage because we need opaque. But down here, when we put that brown, we need it to be light. And maybe a little more darker as it comes closer to the foliage because what that represents is that there's shade. That there's shade. So this is what I mean. If I make this down here darker, it literally means there's more shade into falling into the trees and trunks. Okay, that was very dark, but I'll leave it like that. Um, okay, so now let's put some branches of brown into the foliage. So this is what I mean. Look, just as this came up, not everywhere, just intermittent, like one here, the V, one comes out here, one comes out like out here. You see how they are not all connected? Maybe one is thicker. You see what is happening? So the branches of down here that we stop here now continue up here and up here because it's interlocked. Like there's a gap. Those gaps are foliage on top of the branch. Basically, that's what it represents. Make sure you don't do thicker parts at the end. The thicker part should be as it's closer to the ground. You know. Um, I may put some more blue at the end in a little bit. but you get the idea. Now we're gonna do the other side carefully. Some branches maybe of trees we don't see up here, like over here. Okay, so now I clean my brush and I'm gonna do something very important I want you to do. I'm gonna grab my blue, set it down here, water it down. It needs to be watered down because we're gonna throw like shadows or shades of the trees on the ground and they need to continue. Shadows don't care what's on the ground, they just go over them because it's just a reflector of nature. So this is what I mean. From this tree, look, that's pretty dark, so I watered it down more. But it comes from this tree, and look, it continues from the blue to the yellow. You see, this is what I mean. It maybe opens up. I'm gonna do the other tree. These ground things, I'm opening it up. Maybe this area is all a little more darker. And because I'm putting blue over the yellow, it becomes kind of greenish, the ground. There's some more back here we don't know and we don't see. And these lines, these vertical lines of the shades are very important because, like I said, they ground things. They put things more grounded. Okay. Make sure some of them are spread. Here I'm going to go and do this one. The key needs to be watered down. That's the key. Okay. Kind of emphasize this line here to show there's something there, an edge. But you see how now these lines, and as they're closer to the source that's casting the shadow, then they get a little tiny darker. Okay, so let's do that. Over here a little darker, over here a little darker, and especially over here. Very important. You see how everything kind of grounded? I'm just defining a line here to emphasize the distinction of the ground with the rest of the road. But we need, I just realized, more foliage over in this tree. It's kind of short. You see how there's branches and there's not much coming out here. And bring that dark volume blue here and get really in here deep. Okay. See how our trees are coming to life, and everything seems to. Something I want to emphasize is that using the water, everything seems to um, get lighter. What we'll do now is with some brownish, I guess, in different tones. Maybe look. put some leaves on the ground. I don't know how this will work. I'll use some blue in a moment to diversify it. But and again, this doesn't discriminate, so it's gonna be on the road as much as on the field. All right, let's do it in some blue, I guess. So there's a variety. But this just means there's leaves on the ground. Some patches are a little less, some of them are thicker than the others. The fact that I'm using the blue, now everything's kind of in some parts light up, so it's not that dark. That sense of variety, I always emphasize and tell you students to explore it. It's more organic. So, okay, great. You see how the ground now seems a little more, let's see, has something. Okay, okay. Let's do a couple of people and we'll be done. And I'm gonna go over in detail of what we've seen. Like I always say, this is a video, so you could always look back, watch it again, pause it, go back, but especially pause it to really look at what I've done, so you could catch up if I'm going too fast. And do it again. Yeah, you could do this again and put more trees or two roads, more people. Um, but let's here with these colors. Let's see. Um, no, I don't want to do orange. Orange will really stand out. So I'm going to use the blue and put the legs. So one leg is longer than the other, which actually means one of them is bending. The other person may have a lighter blue shirt next to this person. That's very watery. So I'm just collecting the water. Okay. Um, but the other person could perhaps have yellowish torso. Oh, this is very loose. Um, let's see. The arms could be coming down. And you can mix this color. They're together. They're gonna cast a shadow too, so don't worry. And then the head, and um, we do have to emphasize the roundness of the head. And maybe one of them is wearing something on the head. But we gotta clean the brush sometimes. Otherwise, you're playing with the same colors over and over. Um, I may use, this is very watered down, the person to my left. So now I'm using black to define some spots. But you see how the water just takes it? And here, because the colors are blend, I'm blending them together in the sense of the body. The body both are together, like right here. I may use more black. And that's very good to use it to join them together. Now, very lightly, use that blue. Remember to cast that shadow. It's very important because this is what will ground them. Okay. So two people going for a walk. Very simple. Very simple. You do them as you want to represent them. I just barely did the figures. Gonna get the excess of my paint. So when I close my, I don't. And yes, you may wonder my yellow is very dirty with green, so I'm picking up with a tissue so I could keep my yellow pure. Um, but I'm gonna show you now closer. This is the painting. Maybe from the bottom. So from the bottom left, you see we have those leaves we made with brown and blue, and the fact that they're in different tones and some of them are lighter, darker. You see, and look also the trunk, how we mix the color, those very light blues, and we added a little bit of brown. And yes, I emphasize the darkness right at the bottom because we need that to ground the trunk of the tree. You see, if I leave it light, it's gonna, no, we need to ground it. So then we move a little bit to the right, and you can see the road is blue compared to the yellow of the ground. And I want to talk also those long line shadows that, but because they're cast all over the ground in straight lines, horizontal, they ground things. I'm showing the entire floor to show you how um, the fact that they're horizontal kind of ground things. Okay. Then we come up and look at the trees. Sorry, on the right, coming up. It will focus. There you go. Come up, come up, come up, and then we see the foliage. You see how the branches are in um, not completed. So when they're not completed, that just represents foliage that goes in between them. Then we move from the bottom to the right, go up. Same thing we did with the trees. You see some mixtures of different colors, green, light blue, brown. But the brown, we have to bring it up to make sure that when we do the brown up here, we know that it's branches. And we have to do a different color or a very dark blue or black because for the branches, I mean. We didn't do black, but what I mean is you need to do a different color or tone of darkness because you need to differentiate between that and the foliage. The branches need to be differentiated from themselves and the foliage. You can see now how it makes sense. You see how the people are joined by that dark tone. So you use a color and you mix both figures, and your eye does the rest of the job. The butches now they make sense. These two patches, one to the left and one to the right. And the fact that the bottom is flat grounds it also and shows you there's a path in between them. And the back, there's foliage or trees, and there's a distinction between that and the just blue of the sky. So that's the illusion of what we just created. You could pause it here, and really carefully look. Um, but yeah, great. The fact we could have gone up here a little bit more with the foliage up here, but the fact that this one takes more space up here than this one, it was just to show this one being in front of the others. So as you can see, this tree before is closer to us than these two. So I wanted to make that continue by not completing this up here because it's farther away. I hope you enjoy. Have a good rest of the week, holiday days, good weather, and yeah, see you soon.